Good morning and welcome to the Tempos Back to School Seminar. My name is Wilson A. Young. I am one of the executives on the board, and we are very, very pleased to have this seminar for people who are either in a post-secondary education right now, looking to get into post-secondary education, parents that would love their kids to go to post-secondary education, but find that finances is an issue. We hope that after these presentations that you'll have an idea as to where you can look towards getting some information regarding some funding. Today on our guest speakers list, we have Ms. Odette Diaz-Tully. Looking at her bio, she's an experienced student advisor and workshop facilitator. She is passionate about helping students of all ages understand the financial resources available to help find their post-secondary education goals, to fund their post-secondary education goals. Odette has worked in educational institutions in Alberta as well as in Ontario. She's going to be our first speaker. I'm going to hand it right over to Odette. Welcome, Odette.
Thank you for having me today. And I am going to try and navigate here and share my screen because this is always fun trying to share resources and talk about financial aid and awards. And a lot of times what I want to talk about, not only financial aid, but awards as well as budgeting, because many times students are going to be on their own for the first time, probably learning how to buy groceries and budget their funds. And if they are receiving an Alberta student loan, then they need to know how to balance their budget and learn how to keep that money going until they receive their second disbursement of funding. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about Financial Aid and Awards 101. So on my agenda today, I want to give you an overview of where you can find resources. So people know where to go to apply for loan funding, but not too many know where to go to apply for awards, bursaries, and scholarships, and talk about budgeting. So with financial aid I think about as loans. So you're applying for Alberta student aid. This is one option you have to help fund your education. I want you to feel comfortable in understanding the loan process, what it means to repay, and if anything goes wrong in between with your loan status, if they say that you're on hold or you're on academic probation, you need to understand what that is and to speak to your financial aid and awards office at your institution. Also, make sure you are checking regularly your student aid status, because you could be receiving messages from your financial aid office or the government with any updates. On the student award side, you need to know when and how to apply for awards, bursaries, and scholarships, knowing the differences between the three of them, and making sure that you understand the criteria before you apply for any award, bursary, or scholarship. So the whole process starts by you applying for student aid by visiting the Alberta Student Aid website. You're going to register for an account if this is your very first time in applying, and you'll create a digital account and ID. So once you do that, you're then going to learn about financial aid. So financial aid, like student loans, are funded by the federal and provincial governments. Students must apply each semester or every academic year. So an academic year for fall, for instance, would be September to December. Winter is January until April. And if you decide to do summer school, that is May to August. So what you can do right now is, if you're coming to school in September, you can apply from September through till the end of April right away. Later on, let's say in about February, if you're coming back for summer school, you will need to apply for loan funding for summer school. Eligibility requirements. Well, you could be a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident, or a protected person. Many times you have to live in the province of which you're seeking funding for at least a year without studying before you can be approved. Also, you have to be in an approved program and post-secondary institution in order to receive loan funding. You could be in a certificate, degree, or diploma program. The minimum is that it must be 12 weeks in length. Now, another question that people always ask is, how is my loan calculated? So the simple formula is allowable costs minus resources equals your loan funding. So under allowable costs, they look at things as your tuition based on the program that you're entering in, any compulsory fees associated with the tuition, travel expenses, and books. Resources would look at your student assets. So if you were working over the summer to help fund your education, great. Any parental contribution. And that is what equals the amount of loan funding you can anticipate on receiving. The next choice that you have would be whether or not you're going to apply for full or part-time loan funding. So full-time funding, if you are applying as a full-time student, you would need to have a minimum of a 60% course load. If you are a student with a learning disability or an accommodation, you can be considered a full-time student with a minimum of a 40% course load. You will have to provide documentation as to your learning disability to our accessible learning office. Now, keep in mind, this information will be uploaded on your application, so the status will be flagged on your Alberta student loan application. So another thing to think of too, if you're in university, you're thinking of maybe 3 or more courses to be considered a full-time student. As a part-time student, you could be taking 1 to 2 courses, and you need to be enrolled in less than a 60% course load. If you are a student with an accommodation or a learning disability, then less than 40% to apply for part-time loan funding. So there will be some forms generated once you apply. The most important would be your Master Student Financial Assistance Agreement, otherwise known as MSFAA. This is important because this can take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to be processed by the government, and it is your agreement to repay this loan back once you graduate. And it also contains your banking information and your signatures on this document. You will also have signature pages. So you'll need to print and sign in all required areas. So you will have one as a student. If your parents need to fill out a signature page, then they will need to sign this document as well. If you come as a married student, then your spouse will need to sign, and you will upload these documents onto your loan application. If any more information is required, then you will be given a list on your application stating what you need to upload. Another common question is, how do I get my funding? And that's a great question. So what happens is before the start of term, before school starts, your school will need to confirm your enrollment. Your funds are dispersed in 2 stages. So in the first semester, so let's say September, you will receive 60% of your funding. This is to buy books, get you set up, that sort of thing. So you usually receive most of your funding in the first semester. In the second semester, let's say January, you will receive 40% of your funding. So this is why we talk to students about budgeting and also for applying for any awards, bursaries, and scholarships. And then of course, budgeting each semester. So another interesting area that I have to share with students is that there is a difference between your financial aid office at your school, the National Student Loan Service Center, and your government. So when students apply for their loan funding, they're applying on the Alberta Student Aid website, okay? This is how your funding is calculated. What your school's financial aid office will do for you, we help students keep their loan in good standing. We also act as the go-between for any questions or inquiries students may have between their provincial loan board and or the National Student Loan Service Center. And we also process some of the documentation that you do upload. The National Student Loan Service Center, they are the keepers of your loan debt. So if at any time you want to find out, how much loan you have to repay, you would need to call them, and they do have a toll-free number. This is the National Student Loan Service Center is the one who actually deposits the funding into your bank account, as they have your banking information as well. And when it comes time to repay your loan, you will be talking to them about repayment assistance if it is required. These are useful contacts that you can have. The Alberta Student Aid website right here. We have their application process here. And the National Student Loan Service Center, there's a toll-free number that you can call and update information. So we're moving on now to awards, bursaries, and scholarships. So awards and bursaries are really based on financial need, and most students do have a financial need. In both of these categories, based on the criteria, they could also be asking for academic achievement and or community involvement, depending on the criteria. With scholarships, it's based on good grades. And as I said, criteria is so important. It's looking at academic merit, demonstrated leadership skills, community involvement. So let me give you an example. So there are some awards where it will say, you need to be in the first year of business, let's say. You must write an essay, you must provide leadership skills and community involvement. A student must meet all the criteria on that award or that scholarship application in order to even be considered for that award. If you don't match all the criteria, you won't be considered for that particular scholarship. So make sure you read the criteria before applying. Once you receive your award, bursary or scholarship, now depending on your institution, most of the application process is usually online. And the great thing about it is that once you fill in a questionnaire, you can develop a profile. Depending on how you answer certain questions, it routes you into particular awards, scholarships, and bursaries. So you're not applying for several at a time. So that has helped to make the process much easier. You have to make sure that you apply by the deadline dates, definitely. And you can also call and speak to your student awards advisor to make sure that you're not missing anything on your application. Otherwise, if you do miss some parts of your application, you may not be considered for that particular award. Other sources of funding. So outside of your institution, there are opportunities to apply for funding to help you pay for school. So one is definitely your institution, making sure that you apply on time. Two, there are associations outside of your school that will help you. If your parents work and their job provides scholarships to students, you need to ask. There could be certain clubs, cultural organizations, and corporate companies that can help. Outside of that, there are external websites that students can apply to throughout the academic year. A good one is Scholarships Canada. It offers scholarships to students in every province in Canada. There's also Alexander Rutherford High School Achievement Scholarships. And many people don't realize this, but banks offer scholarships as well to high school and post-secondary students. So the top banks, TD, CIBC, Royal Bank, etc., you can Google their website and see what offerings they do have available for students. Some more sources of funding I put on here. This slide, and again, this whole slide deck I will make available after the presentation is over, and it will be shared with the students, and just giving you ideas on where to look, how to look, and go from there. So, which takes us down to budgeting now. So this is always an ugly topic because people don't want to talk about money, but that's okay. You're going to have to, because budgeting really and truly is a lifelong skill. It helps you figure out how much money you're making, spending, and if you're able to save. I know this can be overwhelming. Like, where do you start? Well, start with a plan. Figure out your needs versus your wants and determine some of your financial goals. One way to start is by looking online for a spreadsheet. You want a basic spreadsheet that shows income versus expenses, and you're going to subtract your expenses from your income. So if your expenses are greater than your income, you've got a problem, and we need to work on that. If you are doing well and your income is less than your expenses, then you can put some money towards savings. Your financial aid office can also help students with starting a budget. Another resource that you have is through the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, the FCAC. They have all sorts of budgeting spreadsheets and tools, not only for students, but every part of your life. So if you want to buy a house, a car, you can visit the FCAC website. This is the link for the budgeting planner that you see up here on this slide. So, any questions? And I want to thank you for hosting this event and inviting me.
That was a lot of information, and man, I learned a few things today. Now, if anybody has questions, please just put it in the chat, and we will be able to ask Odette. I have a couple that have requested some questions answered. First one, is there a limit to the number of amount of grants that can be applied for in a year?
Is there a limited grant funding?
Can I apply for more than one grant and get accepted, and then they say, nope, you've applied for too many, that's it?
No, I don't know of any limit per se, I really don't. You have to keep in mind though, that when you do apply for these awards, bursaries, scholarships, etc., you are competing in a sense with other students as well. So if you are putting in applications and getting them, that's fantastic. I've never heard of a situation where they've capped a student from receiving that. When it comes to grant funding, on your loan, that's usually a provincial, federal government type of thing when they figure out your loan. So grant funding is based on finances, like family finances. So a grant you don't pay back, a loan you do. So there are students who whose families have a lower income, and they will receive more grant funding than loan funding. And so grant students don't pay back, but loan funding they do.
Can funding ever be revoked or terminated? And if so, under what basis?
So it depends on the circumstance. And yes, it can. If a student, let's say, applies for one semester and withdraws, let's say, 2 months after they've started and they've received funding, and we realize that they've withdrawn from classes, we do have to go online and change the date that they withdrew on their loan funding. And what will happen is that when we update their application, it goes to the ministry. And so they know that something has happened. They've given money to the student. And then a letter is issued to the student letting them know if they need to repay any funding. And they will be told that the funding that they receive for that term, they might have to repay a portion of it, but they will be notified in letter. So
therefore, the approval of the application and the actual giving of the money is not issued by the institution, it's really issued by the government, although you apply through the institution.
Right. Actually, no, you're applying on the government website.
Oh, okay.
You're applying on the government website, and it's the National Student Loan Service Center that actually places the money into the student bank account. What the school does is we notify the government that the student has withdrawn and the end date. And once we update the student's loan file, the government will then sends out notification letters, messages to the students. So it can be online and paper, and letting them know if they are going to be placed on academic probation with their loan, not with the school. And also if they do have to repay a certain portion of the funds that they received that semester.
Yeah, I have another question here. What are the academic and or financial requirements in order to apply for awards, bursaries, or scholarships?
So awards, bursaries, and scholarships, there's a certain finite amount for each award, bursary, or scholarship. What was the other part of that question, please?
Hang on, let me go back up here. What are the academic requirements, if any, and or financial?
Well, it depends on the criteria for that particular award, bursary, or scholarship. So you have to read the criteria carefully. So if the criteria says you must have a minimum of an 80% GPA, you could, it could ask you to be in a particular faculty, even or program, or even a particular year, or it could make it anywhere from first to fourth year. Whatever the criteria states is what a student has to pay attention to before applying.
I was under the impression, again, ignorance. When I hear the name scholarship, I always look at, boy, I got to be in the top 5% echelon of things. Is that the definition?
That is a common misnomer. A lot of people think, I have to be a straight A student. It will tell you on the scholarship. Again, it's the criteria. This is why I keep saying that word. It's going to drive you nuts, but I want you to know about it because that is going to be your saving grace going forward. Because a lot of people don't read about the criteria. So if you're not matching the criteria, unlike a job description where you don't have to match everything to apply, when it comes to awards, bursaries, and scholarships, you need to match the criteria 100% to be considered for it.
And when should someone start applying for bursary scholarships or loans prior to starting university? Should they apply 6 months before they start, as they start, 3 months? Is there a magic number?
So what happens that each province opens up the loan application probably about 2.5 to 3 months in and around that range before the start of term. So once that application opens, once you go onto the website, you can, if you're new, you create a profile and start the process. If you're a returning student, you use your login and your ID credentials to sign on again and apply for that particular academic year.
Well, I think we have exhausted all the questions for you, Odette. I'd like to thank you very much. It has been quite informative, at least from my aspect, and I hope it has helped everybody on the chat here, that the information given will be helpful to when you're ready to apply or your kids are ready to apply to any post-secondary education. As Odette said, she is going to email us the slideshow that she just did. If anybody wants her information, I think it's on one of those. She'll be able to answer any general information that you have. Specific information, you will definitely have to either go through your institution or your loan counselor. Thank you very much. Up next, we have the one and only Akiri Harvey, born in Barbados, migrated to Calgary, and she is now the youth representative for the Barbados Canadian Association of Calgary. She's going to tell us what the Barbados Association can do regarding helping students in post-secondary education. Akiri, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm on behalf of the Barbados Canadian Association of Calgary. I wish there was something like this when I was preparing to go to university, to be honest. It would have helped a lot. So just a little bit about the association to begin. The BCAC was founded in 1988, and its primary goal is to offer supports and services to members and the general community at large. So the majority of our members are from Barbados. So BCAC works towards promoting Barbadian culture and achievements to the public through participation in local and regional cultural activities. For several years now, the BCAC has had a scholarship or bursary program for college and university students. Students do not have to be members or related to members to receive support, and there are no age requirements so long as the student is attending post-secondary. So how the program works is it's intended to assist Albertans of Caribbean heritage who demonstrate excellence in society as they achieve their post-secondary educational goals. The scholarship is available to Albertan students who are attending post-secondary accredited academic institutions. So students must be a resident of Alberta, of Caribbean heritage, or connected to the Caribbean community, enrolled in an accredited educational program in Canada, and selection will be based on the following. So high academic achievement based on previous year's transcript, evidence of community or volunteer service, involvement in extracurricular activities, and demonstrated leadership abilities. So what is expected of you for the application? Well, applicants will be expected to submit the following for review. So an essay detailing the intended area of study. So what you're going to school to study. If you don't know, just put whatever you applied for. So if you're doing general studies, then you can put that. And then also outline the above criteria. So talk about how you're a part of the community or how you're connected to it. Talk about how you've helped out in the community, whether that's volunteering, performing, all that good stuff. Talk about all the other extracurricular activities that you've done and how you show leadership throughout. The other thing is proof of enrollment in an accredited Canadian institution. And then a copy of transcripts from the previous year. But if you are a first-year student, this requirement will be waived. However, in the past, we have had students submit their final high school grades. So if you wish to do that, you can do that as well. A total amount of $10,000 will be distributed among eligible applicants, and disbursement amounts will depend on the number of eligible applicants. So last year we had 10 applicants, each one got a scholarship, but we anticipate there may be more this year. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. Applications open on September 1st, so just a few days away. And the deadline to submit the application is October 30th. So to get the application, you're going to have to contact us. Unfortunately, that's the only way we have it right now. I'll talk about how to contact us in a bit, but applications can be submitted by email or mail, but all mailed applications are received by the deadline. In the past, we haven't required students to prove that the funds they received have been spent for school, but that is something that the association has been discussing. So it may be something that we require in the future, but I will ask them to highlight that and make that known on the criteria list when it's sent out to anyone who asks for the application. And then in regards to international students, unfortunately, based on our criteria right now, international students would not qualify, but it is something that the association can discuss, and we would have to come to an agreement on changing it. Now, how to contact the association, you can contact us via email. That is bcacassociation@gmail.com. Again, the email address is bcacassociation@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram at BCA Calgary, or find us on Facebook at Calgary Bajans, or just search the association name. If you know any of the members or anyone on the executive, feel free to reach out to us and we can further direct you to the association. If you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to reach out and ask. I know that was really short and brief, but that's basically all we've got for the scholarship application. I say do it, it's worth it. Even if you get on the lower end, it helps a lot. I wish I applied for a lot more scholarships when I was in university. And who knows, we may even get less than the 10 that we got last year. So it's always better to apply because not everyone who may be eligible always applies. And so then the money's just kind of there. So I say just apply, and good luck to everyone.
Thanks a lot, Curie. Now, based on what Odette said and what you just said, like you guys have a common theme: apply, apply, apply. Right? Couple of questions I have here. Remember, you guys put the questions in the chat. We'll try and answer as many as we can. One of the questions I got here was, do I need to be a member of the Barbados Canadian Association to apply for a scholarship?
You do not, so long as you are a part of the Caribbean community or connected to the community in some way, then that's totally fine. Even if you aren't, still apply. You're welcome to come and join us at any point in time.
And that was the next question, is how do I become a member of the association?
Reach out to us via email, on social media, talk to any one of the members. And then we can invite you to one of the meetings. And then there is a membership fee. I think the family is $25. Yeah. And then single is $15.
Okay. And again, I don't have to be from Barbados to be a member. So it's not a citizenship from Barbados. It could be anybody that could join.
Yeah, that's correct.
Now, when you talk about the essay, do I need to write an essay of my choice, or is the organization given the topic and then I write the essay?
It's an essay of your choice. So basically, all they want to know is a little bit about who you are, what you're going to study, and how you've been a part of the community, how you're a leader, all that kind of stuff, and why you think you should be awarded the scholarship.
So in part of that essay then is volunteering in anything, not necessarily the organization, but is that going to be an important part of your decision-making process?
It is, yeah.
Okay. If we have any other questions, as I said, put it in the chat. Thanks a lot, Curie. Those of you who want more information, we do have Curie's information. As again, I said, she's the youth representative for the Barbados Canadian Association of Calgary. Reach out to her, and I am sure she'll be able to help you with either the membership or finding more about the scholarship for the youth. We jump right in now into Yasmin. Yasmin is an executive member of the African Canadian Association of the University of Calgary. They strive to contribute to the improvement of general welfare of the University of Calgary while you're on campus. They provide an open dialogue for African and Caribbean issues. Welcome, Yasmin. You have the floor.
Thank you for having me. Yes, so my name is Yasmin. I am on the Treasury team at AXA. So AXA is a University of Calgary-based organization led by students. We aim to celebrate and represent people of African Caribbean descent through our many events. We actually have an event coming up on the 29th, so come out if you can. So essentially, we were established in September 2018 and started out small but grew gradually, celebrating and educating people on African Caribbean cultures and welcoming anyone who would like to, join our events and whatnot. We like how you get into our club or become a member is generally through events. Because of COVID, we don't really have like a membership fee or anything, but we are pretty big. You can reach us on Instagram or Twitter or even through our website. That is about how AXA is. We are always welcome to others' thoughts and opinions on different issues, especially during Black History Month. We dedicate this entire month through educating people on Black history, more particularly Canadian history, through social media, especially during COVID. And we would love to hear anyone's thoughts or if anyone heard of AXA as well.
So there are a couple of questions that I see here. Is there a fee to join the student association?
Generally it's $5. However, the fee was waived during COVID. I imagine it would be reinstated when schools, everything is back on campus.
Can students join at any point in the year, or is there a specific time where membership is accepted?
Sorry, can you say my
Can students join at any point in the year, or is there a specific time frame when applications are accepted?
Usually Clubs Week is a very big thing, and we expect a lot more people to join through Clubs Week. However, if you join some events, like we had a ton of events last year, including Melanite, which was essentially a gala that celebrated African Caribbean cultures with like musicians, poets, fashion show, whatnot, or any of our other events, you are able to become a member if you talk to one of the execs.
Okay, excellent. I have a couple of questions here, and I'm going to bring all the speakers in now with all these questions because they're just coming in too fast for me to look through all of them. But we have a question here from Anthony for Odette. Now, Odette, when you talked about dividends regarding the loans or the scholarships or the bursaries, Anthony wants to know, what are dividends and do they inhibit with the application process? There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not necessarily dividends that we look at. We're not an accounting firm. We basically look at what students have to bring to the table. So if you earn income over the summer, if you have RSPs or anything, or RESPs that you want to use towards education, you need to list that on your application. Depending on the amount, and students don't have like $1 million per se, but it's not going to hinder you depending on the dollar value, right? But it's something that is looked at to help calculate. Here's something else that you should know. If your parents are combined income is a six-figure dollar value, you will not receive any loan funding because the government will look at that and say your parents can pay for you to go to school. The only way that you can get past that is if you're from a family with like 20 kids, like the Duggars, and you have to prove that it's too expensive, even with a six-figure salary, for the parents to pay for every single child's education. So there would be other documentation that you would need to provide in the application. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. Now that brings up another question for me. As you know, that is a major issue in Canada. So although our parents are making a six-figure income, their debt load might be six figures plus. So I don't have the money to send. So is it only income they look at, or do they look at expenses as well from the parents' point of view?
Well, it's income that they're asking for on the application. So, and here's the thing, when you put down information on your application, it routes to the CRA, just so you know, so they can verify the amount that you're earning. What happens? There are some people, unfortunately, during the pandemic who have lost their jobs, or they have their income has lowered. There is paperwork that they would need to fill out showing that they've taken a decline in their income, and we would have to update that on the student's loan application.
Okay.
We filed income tax saying that we have a six-figure salary, but I've lost my job and I have like zero income. They would have to provide paperwork, a letter from HR stating that their income changed from this to this, and we would need that uploaded onto the student's application. in order for us to update their application for them.
So what I just kind of gather from that is, do not fudge your income because there is a back way for them to verify that income.
Right. It's a government website, so all government agencies are connected in one way, shape, or form. So yeah, there's a CRA verification of income on an application.
Okay. Akiri, I have a question here for you. What extracurricular activities are accepted on the application? Or what other curricular activities do they look at?
I want to say anything within the community, anything that goes towards. So if you're doing something that aids within what you're going to study, that would be great. Something within the community, something that shows leadership. So almost any extracurricular activity, I would say. I don't think there's any stipulation on what is and what isn't accepted.
Okay, and I have to ask this. It's the same question to both you guys. When, let's say, the Barbados Association gives out a scholarship, do they vet where that money has to be spent, or is it left up to the student?
In the past, we haven't, but I think there have been talks of asking students to provide proof that the funds have been used for school. So whether that's paying your tuition, getting school supplies, etc. So like I said, I will ask them to make that clear on the application with the list of criteria that they're asking for. So students know what they have to do after they receive the funding. But in the past, we were just assuming that students have used it just for school.
And Oda, this question also applies there. I remember when I was in school, the grant or the loans were given in lump sums, and some students would take the lump sum, and in that time, you were getting 10% on a GIC. They would take the money and invest it. Is there a way that the government looks at it and says, no, you can't do that, it has to be used for certain things?
Once a student gets money for loans, so one thing that people need to know is that once you apply for a student loan, the first thing the school does is we request tuition out of it first. So it will always come to pay your tuition. So if you're receiving money in the fall semester, we will take out your fall tuition only, and the balance will go to your bank account. What a student does with that money after the fact, we cannot control. However, if they're applying for, remember, CRA, when you file your income taxes for the following year, that is where they will get caught if they do not share all information. So what a student does with their money, we can't control. However, once they file their income taxes, if they've earned a certain amount, the government will know.
Okay. Again, for you, Akiri, the application process, is it per semester or per year, per academic year?
It's per academic year. So you do it in September, the application opens in September and it closes in October. Okay. And then you'll receive the funds in November, generally around when we have our independence celebration.
Yeah. Yasmin, the question here is for you. Do I have to be a Caribbean student or from any one of the African countries to join the organization? That's one. The other question is, are international students accepted into the organization?
No, you don't have to be of African or Caribbean descent to be a member of AXA. We actually have an exec who isn't one, and she's also an international student. So anyone is welcome to join. Our purpose is to just celebrate those cultures and through different events and whatnot.
You talk about events. What type of events do you guys put on? And is it a set number of events per year?
We don't really have a set number of events per year, though we do have like really big events because of COVID, we had to limit the number of events we had and cancel some of them, unfortunately. However, in the past, we've had like Melanite, which is a very big event for AXA, and that's more or less like a gala. We have the summer barbecue that started, I think, last year, and it's still going every summer closer to when school starts. So like, for example, ours is on the 29th, which I believe is tomorrow. And there's like some small events. We've had like the charity date auction where people would bid on a date and all of that money would go to a certain charity. So yeah.
Okay. What is the criteria for joining AXA?
I believe you just have to be a student. Like we're not really picky on who can be a member. But I believe it's just being a student.
Yeah. Now, is AXA a social club, or if students from African or Caribbean descent have an issue, let's say in assimilating and adjusting or anything like that, or even maybe having an issue with a course, is there a part of the organization that can help students like this to keep them in school? Hello.
Thank you. I believe we had mentoring in the past, though. When it comes to students having an issue, especially going into university, one of our goals in AXA is to cultivate the community in order to limit people, African people or Caribbean people, feeling lonely or isolated because they seem different, right? Our group is fairly like an inclusive group. So even if you weren't of Caribbean or African descent or culture, I'd still imagine someone could relate to some of the things that we've talked about on our social media, for example, or can be educated in some way. You can also make tons of friends through the number of events as well.
So you mentioned social media. What social media platforms is AXA
on? So we have our own website. It is, I think, axaufc.ca. Let me just double check here. Yeah, axaufc.ca. We're very active on our Instagram, which is, again, AXA UFC. And we also have a Twitter account, and that's at UFC. So AT UFC.
Yeah. So seeing that you guys have, as I say, African and the Caribbean regions there, do you guys liaise with any of the African or Caribbean associations outside of what is in the university, such as, we just had a Curie here from the Barbados Canadian. So do you guys have any, any partnerships?
Well, we are open to collaborating with a number of different groups. Mm-hmm. In the past, we have collaborated with other student organizations like the Nigerian Student Organization or the Ethiopian and Eritrean Student Association. We are always open, though I myself joined about a year ago, and to my knowledge, there has been some partnerships as well.
No, okay. Very good. It looks like all the questions so far have been answered. I would like to thank our guest speakers, Odette, Akiri, and Yasmin. I would also like to thank all the people that have joined us. I hope the information was informative.